Here we go. Here we go again. The Nick Bob Podcast brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. Pella of Omaha and Lincoln wants every homeowner to have the best quality windows and doors. They're willing to bet $100 on it. They're coming to my house tomorrow, by the way. They got the bay window in the upstairs. That's getting.
Are we going to have a new commercial coming out?
I don't know. I cannot confirm or deny anything right now. You can call the Omaha or Lincoln showroom. Go to PellaOmaha.com to find out how you can get $100. New windows and doors starting at $122 a month. And we're brought to you by the Brickway Cut Spike Lucky Bucket family. When Nebraska loses another one-score game, look to the bourbon from Brickway or Cut Spike. Great brewery or distillery. They're located at the Omaha La Vista area, 4 blocks south, 120th and Giles. Make sure you check them out. And we're brought to you by Peerless Energy Systems. For any and all air compressor needs, go to peerlessenergy.com. All right, Bo Ruud. Nebraska loses 28-20 to USC. They've now lost 4 games in a row. I don't know what to say.
Well, you start out, here we go again.
I know.
And so I immediately Googled songs that the title, here we go. And I forgot about it. So there's a couple like Ray Charles, Here We Go Again.
Yep.
And then Whitesnake, Here we go again on my own. So I feel like, here we
need a
go.
little Whitesnake?
Well, I don't think we need anything because it's just a here we go again.
It
right?
is. Well, but okay, that's what, because that game just felt so predictable. Like, did it not? Okay, that game felt like this game could be a 2-minute podcast. Like, this could be a 2-minute podcast where you go, we all look at the camera, we shrug our shoulders, go, it's Nebraska, and we move on.
That feels like the blueprint of what we have been and what we still are.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. But, and I don't know how you felt. This game was different for me in only one way. Typically in a game like that, at some point, Nebraska starts to tug at my heartstrings and I get my hopes up.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little bit. I never one time got my hopes up in that game. That scares me. Like, really scares me that I don't know if I have gotten to where I'm like just super pessimistic, or if I'm at an all-time low for confidence, or if I'm just in that mode of like it's Nebraska's cursed and it just won't happen. But like I never once felt confident that Nebraska was going to win the game. Did the hope meter ever start to just rise a little?
When I watch, I always am like going back and forth between, almost like, do we still got a chance to win this? Are we still in it?
Yep.
Like, I still feel that way. But the little thing of doubt that hangs in your head, I think that, if it comes down to, we got to make a play on offense. I still don't think we've got that in us yet.
Yeah.
That, to me, I think it's a coin flip whether the defense can win us a game in the last drive. Like, if they have the ball and we got to get a stop, I actually believe we can find a way to get a stop.
Yeah.
I just don't know that we have proven that we can take the ball down and go win a game, right?
No. That
part is, it seemed like we were, you're right, because offensively, I felt like, man, I didn't think we were going to get in. I really didn't.
Yeah.
On that last drive. Even that last drive, I was like, no, and it's not even just get in and then you got to convert it.
It wasn't 2-point. So you had to score, like, for all intents and purposes, you had to score twice. The chances of that happening are pretty much zero.
Yeah, and our red zone, red zone offense and efficiency in general is just in a place where it's hard to be super confident.
So it's just frustrating that in a game, Nebraska has a pick six, Nebraska blocks a field goal, Nebraska forced a fumble that was recovered at the 16-yard line to set up the offense. Nebraska had 3 red zone trips, only scored 1 touchdown in those, and only scored 20 total points and couldn't win. It's amazing in games where you block a kick. We do that thing on time, like, what are the chances of games where you block a kick, you do this, you block a kick, you get a pick six, you have another turnover that sets up a potential score, you still only score 20 points, and there's just this finding a way to lose thing that is still permeating, that is just frustrating.
Yeah, we have not kicked that, right? We have not kicked it. It's still in us. It's our default. Like, for whatever reason, that's our default. Our default is, it's actually not terrible football. It's pretty decent football.
Yeah.
That is not good enough to win that game. It's really, it's kind of a weird spot to sit in. It's not terrible football. It's decent football. It's a little bit better than average football, but not better than the team we're playing football. Like it's very, it's really a very weird thing.
It is where if you think to year one of Scott Frost, that the Colorado game, year one Frost 2018 till now, you couldn't do what Nebraska's done if you tried.
Yeah.
Where you're going to like, okay, you're going to play just good enough to be within one score. You're going to be right there, but you never, and when I say never, I mean, you are never going to find a way to win that game. You couldn't do that if you tried over the course of 6-7 years now. It's just, I don't even know where to begin. So I guess the first thing I wrote down was just kind of like, literally this could be a 2-minute podcast where you shrug and go, what are you going to do? Yeah. But there's some stuff to unpack. I guess let's start with the offense because you got Dana Holgorsen. There was tons of intrigue.
I was very intrigued. I was very intrigued to watch him call this game. You know, how was it going to work? And we got our questions answered quickly. They basically said he's going to be on the sideline. He's got his sheet and he's calling the play. Like that was like, I was surprised. I mean, I'm still not sure about the terminology of everything, but he was calling it.
For sure. Yes. And there were moments things looked okay, right? Run game got going a bit, in particular in the third quarter. Finally, there were a few plays where there was like a big gaping hole.
Yeah.
There was a few things that looked like some wrinkles, whether they had Lindenmeyer on the tight end, like delay little screen to him, Emmett Johnson's touchdown looked like it was a little different. Bonner had a couple of things that were maybe a little bit new wrinkles. But in the end, when all the dust settled, much the exact same results.
In terms of points,
and production and everything that looked like the offense. Like if you didn't know, say you were in a cave, you went to, was it called Robert's Cave?
Robert's Cave.
Yeah, you go to Robert's Cave. Like, I'm going to Robert's Cave for a week. I'll be back for the USC game. And you didn't know that Dana Holgorsen was I don't think you would have necessarily known that things were okay. You could be like, yeah, the ball was getting out a little quicker. Okay. I mean, whatever.
It's just really hard to judge this week because Holgorsen just got, I mean, like we said, there's only so much he can do. So I'm still intrigued to see kind of the progression of,
me too,
of what he does. But you know, even like how much can we change the offense even in a week? I mean, I don't think you can, right? So I don't know, that's going to be the ongoing story and it'll be fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, the results were not a ton different.
Yes, that wasn't me being critical of Holgorsen. Like I think it was just a reminder when you started watching that game that like anybody that thought all of a sudden they were going to look like the 83 Huskers and score 50. Now I don't think anyone realistically thought that, but anybody like I don't know how much realistically better you can get at this point.
Well, the more I'm watching this team, and we talked about it was maybe last week, we don't have a deep game. Like we have no deep game. Like we don't even sniff going down the field. It's really that part of our game has regressed so much that we don't even really attempt to do it.
No.
And so I think it limits our ceiling so much because, you know, we get no big play. Sometimes you get that, you know, the deep pass and you get a quick score out of it or something. Like you don't get any easy ones if you never throw it deep.
Right. It's a couple of stats here. So 27 completions in this game, 7.1 yards per catch, 5 yards per pass attempt, and a third of the catches were by running backs.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. I'm okay. Like I know that's part of the air raid is you're getting that back out. Like, you know, that's part of what Holgorsen and the Leach system used to do is like they would get everybody out and you have to defend the whole field. Right?
Yes.
That was part of what they do. So the running back, they get touches, man. It's kind of nice. It's quick to the check down. And
but I guess my point is of just showing like the yards per pass attempt and obviously you're not taking a shot with your running back. Like I'm proving you're building off your point of like there is no downfield passing attack whatsoever. And A couple of things. I mean, I think that you change the play calling, you change the offensive coordinator, but it's still the same dudes out there running the plays. And Nebraska still just feels like every single Big Ten game they've played this year, except for Purdue, I would take the other team's skilled players.
Yes. Yep.
So if you stop, and I'm by no means making excuses for Marcus Satterfield or think that Dana Holgorsen is going to be the answer or whatever, but like ultimately, guys, good luck when every conference game, if you had the opportunity to straight up trade for the other team's package of running backs and wide receivers, you would do it in a second. Good luck when that's the case. Yeah, and that's what's frustrating.
It feels like that's becoming more clear. It's like I feel like we did upgrade. We upgraded at some of those positions, and they're still not good enough, right? Yeah. So I think Nair, Banks have had trouble getting open. Like it felt like they were getting like handled off the line a little bit. Like when they're getting pressed, they're just not getting off clean. Yeah. I mean, they were getting held a little bit, but like they're big receivers. Like you kind of have to, that's kind of more, you're supposed to be more physical and be able to use your arm length and your strength to kind of separate sometimes. And I feel like they've had a lot of trouble just getting open in the last 4 or 5 weeks, like truly.
Yeah. I don't, cause it's everything's relative, right? Like last year, the offensive skill players are superior this year than they were last year. But because they have upgraded compared to last year does not mean they are where they need to be.
And they're not week to week performing how even maybe at the top of their game. Like neither of them are going down the field at all. Like between Banks and Nair are 1 and 2 wide receivers, right? Those 2 receivers are not deep threats. They're both sort of this like, they have like an intermediate game kind of, and they're having trouble getting open in that area. Like they're having trouble getting just like regular routes on the outside. They're not winning.
But here's what I'm just trying to figure out, because there's a lot of things that, and we're going to get to the elephant in the room in a second here, but Lloyd was a big deep threat a year ago, and there's none of that with him now. I would think, Barney's good at the underneath stuff or running little jet sweeps with him, but like I would think if you wanted to run Barney on some sort of deep route, he could be pretty good at that. I would think his top end speed would be okay. So I guess I don't understand what's going on with the pass game and its ability to stretch the field at all.
I just feel like our top 3 guys, like you say, you talk about Lloyd, but like he's not in our top. He's the 5th or 6th? I don't know. Receiver? I mean, 4th, 5th. I mean,
I would say he's the 4th.
He's the 4th. So you got 3 guys ahead of him, and none of those 3 are seemingly ever going deep.
Right. So let's get to Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about Dylan right now, because he's not played well for about 5 games in a row now. And I do think on some level, along with probably a lot of Husker fans out there, I'm a little afraid to criticize him because he is the future. And in some ways, he is the tangible representation of hope.
Yeah.
And I do think as he has regressed or struggled, my confidence in the Rule era working has also diminished. Like those 2 things have been tied to me. A part of the reason I was so on cloud 9 early in the season was because of what Dylan Raiola looked like. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, because he was, like I said, the tangible representation of hope and the future. And his struggles have been perplexing and very, very jarring to my confidence in everything moving forward. I'm by no means out on Dylan Raiola, but I also think we got to be able to have an honest conversation about like
how's he look?
How's he look, guys? Let's just be real. Be real. How has he looked for 5 games to you?
he just doesn't feel like he's what would even be the word? Like, it just seems like he's not in sync, not in rhythm, right? So there's something about a rhythm that he had to start the year out where he looked comfortable and the ball seemed to be coming out on time.
Yes.
And the decision making seemed like it was cleaner. If that makes sense. And it all looks a little bit harder right now for him. Like, it's just not coming quite as easy. And I don't know what to make of that, right? I don't know what to make of it, that it all looks a little bit harder. I do think the defenses are throwing different looks and making him move. And I think it's been harder just to, like, for him to see what's going on. Maybe because, like, guys, he's missed some guys that have been open.
He's missed guys open. He's also, there's about once a game, there's some throw where Nayer's breaking it in and Dylan throws it like out.
Yeah.
Or, once or twice a game, there's some like, what was that?
Yeah, a lot of that, like, that are the receivers and the QB on the same page a few times a game. We're just not, right?
Yes.
So we're wasting plays and every play matters. And so we're having too many of those where it just seems like we're just out of sync. And Dylan seems a little out of sync with what he wants to be doing and how he wants to play. But, like, I think we got to see a snapshot of, like, when he's in the zone, we're a more confident football team.
Right.
We feel like we're a little bit more of an attacking football team. And I feel like we're being a little defensive right now. We're being a little, it just feels like we're on our heels again.
And we also, I don't know how much of everything we're talking about of, like, Dylan doesn't seem as decisive or in a rhythm or flow goes back to what we were just talking about with the wide receivers and the skill positions. Like, I don't know. I wish I could sit in a film session and have everybody keep it real with me on, like, well, does that guy look open? Does that guy look open? He's supposed to get there. This guy's supposed to be here. What's this guy supposed to do? It doesn't matter if you put, who you put back there. It probably wouldn't look very good. I don't know if it's that. I think one thing for me, there's just there's a general and nobody's drenched in swag and confidence when you're not playing well and you're losing games, but there was a confidence to him.
Yeah.
A swagger to him. Just fucking watch this.
Yeah.
When he took the field against UTEP, at times even against Illinois, against Colorado, where it was like, listen, I am the number one recruit in the country, from a quarterback recruit in the country. I got this.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that in over a month. And quarterbacking is just like a lot of things in sports. The second you doubt yourself a little bit, things can compound to the bad. Yeah. And I don't know, that's not a great answer because it doesn't give a solution and it also doesn't necessarily identify anything. It just, he looks like a dude. And I always think it's interesting with these people. Like, this guy has probably been just, because I'm sure, I don't know how it was for you. Like, it's jarring when you're a Division I recruit, football or basketball, 99.9% of every football field you stepped on, because guess what? I was right there with you. You are the best player on the field. And you were on a different level than everybody else. And everybody else was trying to even hang with you. And then there probably was a point where when you got to Nebraska, you were like, oh man, like not, and that because I know I felt it. Like, that's how 99% of basketball courts I stepped onto growing up, I was the best player on the court. Then all of a sudden I'm playing pickup at KU and there's Kirk Heinrich there and there's Nick Collison and there's Drew Gooden and there's Aaron Miles and there's Keith Langford. And it's like, whoo, I'm not as good as that guy. I'm not as good as that guy. And the hard thing is to stay confident during that. Yeah. And I just wonder with him if there's like, this is the first time there's been any real, like, smacked in the face adversity on the field. Like, I threw a pick. I'm not seeing this. I couldn't make that throw. I'm not seeing it. Oh my God, I got sacked, whatever. And he's not, he's having a hard time working his way through that.
And he's a freshman. He's a freshman. This is his first go round. There is some of that to be expected. Like, you have to build in some to be expected with some freshmen. Like you just do. Like this is part of his learning curve. So like I will always default to being probably too patient with Dylan because he's young and you need to see the snaps. You need to go through it. The hope is you don't shatter your confidence while doing that.
Yes.
You don't get hurt while doing that. And then you get better. So down the road, obviously you might, maybe the weapons are in place, when you're ready to fire, but like he's going through it right now. That to me is what I see. Like it's a kid going through it that is, man, he's trying to find it. He's trying to find his confidence, trying to find his rhythm. I mean, he just was missing throws that he wasn't missing the start of the year. Bad interceptions. The start of the year, he was protecting that ball.
Right.
There weren't bad interceptions, right? No. So he's had 1 or 2 or 3 bad interceptions in a row in games. It's like where you go, it's just part. I think it's part of his, the maturing process for him that this is what happens.
There's a reason anymore. They're just not a lot of true freshmen come in and just or take the keys to the car and the starter from day one. And even for the most uber talented of uber talented guys, it's just not usually how it works. But yeah, he's not in a good flow. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know what to think about that.
I don't know if there's like, here's what's hard is I do think the new OC, do people call him Holgo? They call him Holgo.
I kind of like that.
Holgo's okay. Holgo, the one thing about that air raid is I do think it's a less complex offense. I remember like talking to Wes Welker about that. And because I was like, I just asked about Mike Leach and he was the OC and I think starting in 05. So we played him 04, 05.
Yep.
And they gave us fits with this air raid offense. It was brand new at the time. This is the Mike Leach, but then Holgo took over as OC in 05. But like Welker said, it's like he writes like 6 plays on a napkin was Mike Leach. Right. It was like, whatever you think, it's easier.
Yes.
Whatever you think how hard it is, go easier than that. I think that there's some sort of simplicity to this thing that might be very, very in this moment helpful just in the sense of like simplifying everything. People kept talking about getting the ball. Like it does get the ball out. So part of it is like, instead of like, power run, play action deep, it's more like you substitute some of that run game to, it's more checkdowns. Like you're going to get the running backs, short throws to receivers. It's sort of an extension of the run game, but the ball is supposed to come out pretty quick most of the time. Right. But I just know there's a simplicity in just the concepts. I think the way that they used to do it back in Tech was like, it was easier than you would believe.
Right.
But it was very effective if you do it right.
Yeah.
And they did it right there. Not everybody can do it right. But he came from that system, and he's kind of done it right everywhere he's went.
And maybe that seems like what Dylan needs. It seems like he needs things simplified for him a little bit right now. And
they need to slow down the processing and speed up, like getting the ball out and getting it. Like I loved how they actually got the ball to Emmett Johnson a few times, where it's like these plays that were simple, and then just get it to him and let him run. Right. And he would, and then your players got to make plays. And, I thought Emmett Johnson did a pretty good job of like, he turned a couple of plays to get first downs. He made the one, he got, that's part of letting your players play in my book is like, you're not doing too much and you're always keeping the ball sort of in play. Not like, oh, it was too hard and we took a sack or had to, throw an incomplete. You're getting the ball in play to, it's like, okay, now go do something. Somebody break a tackle. Right. So that's part of the game. Is like you got to keep the ball sort of like in your players' hands, giving them opportunities.
I hopefully because that's the thing that you hope with Holgo now in the equation, that each day there are like you're making leaps and strides of being more comfortable and maybe even being able to install a little bit more. It's not going to be the full-fledged complete air raid, but I'm hoping like there's a big leap this week, Kevin. I mean, think about it's been 2 weeks. You get a game, and then now they get film. And I guarantee as we're recording this, Holgo and Dylan can get into a room and like talk through things.
Yeah.
And so, but just there's no question he's got to get going, because I'm still not. there's still a lot of clamoring for like, get Harburg in there for a series, get Harburg more. It's hard because it's like, I don't know when he's out there, he has the 13-yard run, and just because one play works doesn't mean that like a whole series is going to be like a whole game's going to be like, if he was out there, Nebraska, he'd run for 15 yards every time he had the ball. It's like, well, no,
then they'd load the box like they did last year, and we couldn't run or throw. So remember that, like that's part. So like, yeah, remember like there's a reason why like we went away from that. We saw a year of that, right? So we've got Dylan. We've seen what when Dylan's executing it at more his peak level, like what we can be. That's the first, 5 games of the year. Like we just got to find a way to get him back into that. And that's the job of the coaches. Like we can say whatever we want. They're in there every day. They know who's hurt, who's not, who can do this right now, who can't. And they've got to find a way to manufacture it so Dylan can just go out there and just start like getting back into his flow.
Yeah, because he's got to get. Are you vibing with me at all? That he looks like I just feel like looks like he's lost a little bit of his confidence.
Yeah, he's just a little less decisive than he was. I feel like the ball was just coming out, like it was just coming out on time.
Yes,
and now it feels like the timing when it's coming out, like that's still to be determined.
Right. Anything else with the offense before we move on? I mean, it just at the end of the day, they scored 13 points. Like there were moments it looked better, but when the dust settled, it was largely the same production, the same points, the same red zone issues.
It just looked like the running backs were the one, like it was basically Dowdell and Emmett Johnson looked like this breathed some life into them.
Yes.
They had a better week. I thought they just looked better. I thought they performed better. The receivers, I think I just didn't feel like they were, something was missing there. Dylan, I think it's still, he's still trying to get in the flow. But really it's about the red zone for us. Cause like, we didn't get in there as much as I would have liked, but settling for field goals, like it puts a lot of pressure on the defense, and the defense just wasn't perfect.
No. Now, to be fair, there was, 3rd and 8 down inside the red zone. You throw the back shoulder fade to Banks, where it did look like he got held.
He did.
And he caught it, but then he bobbled it and he was out of bounds. The other red zone, I believe it was 3rd and 2 inside the 10. Dylan Raiola, like they ended up that was a play they had Banks open for. They ran the fake one and missed Banks, but it also felt like, man, 3rd and 2, could you run it twice?
I don't know. I mean, Dylan, like I said, Dylan, though, he's got to see that, man. That's the old
touchdown
slant and go, or
where there was
it was like the pick and go.
The pick and go. Yeah, he was like coming over to set a pick and then slipped out of it. Did you wish that, because Brock Heward was saying on the broadcast that they would have felt like at times the run game was rolling, and then they would kind of go away from it? Do you wish they would have stuck with the run more, or is a lot of this stuff just hindsight 2020, like typical, like
a little bit? But I mean, if we're running the air raid, just know there's gonna be a little bit less running. But I did not like the call, the timeout to not even like do a hard count.
Okay, we'll get into that before we get into the defense.
I didn't love that.
Okay, so some of the game and clock management stuff. So that was end of the 4th down and 3. It was around like the 40-yard line. What Ruud said happened was they lined up to do a fake punt.
Okay.
USC was in punt safe or whatever.
Yeah.
So they called timeout because they didn't want to run a fake punt with that.
Yeah.
They then, during that timeout, decided, you know what, let's go for this. And so Holgo said he's got to play, but only in a certain look.
Yeah.
So they came out and they weren't in the right look for it. So they took the delay of game and then punted it away.
That's part of the game, right? It didn't go their way, but it just, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm
No, let it rip. No, you let it rip. Do not bite your tongue. You don't like it. You didn't like it. I didn't like it.
Why can't they have an off? Like, okay, line for fake, off, punt it, save the timeout, right?
Right. I mean, because
you don't have to call a time. Like, just
there was a world where that was going to end up making a huge difference.
Yeah.
And even their final drive, I feel like their urgency was not high enough where they almost ran out of time again.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you don't have to call timeout. Like,
right. They call a lot of timeout. They call a lot of timeouts on like fourth downs and I get you get like to punt and different things.
I don't like, but see, to me, if you're going to go for it, you don't want the defense to have a chance to reset and think about like, well, hey, what are they going to be doing here?
Well, they did that. I think they called a timeout at Purdue, 4th and 1 in the red zone. They called timeout, and you knew they were going to line up or it might have been Indiana. I can't remember which one. And they line up in that ISO thing. Yeah. And I agree. You by calling timeout, you allow the defense to get ready for whatever it is that's going to happen here. And I just, either you have a play you like and you want to go for it, or you don't.
Yeah.
And even why not come out, and if you get the look you like, you run it, and if you don't, let's say you don't want to do that, then tell Dylan to get under center and hard count it and see if you can get him to jump.
Yeah, it was such a waste. It was a wasted timeout in the sense they didn't even then try to
draw him off sides or nothing.
Yeah,
just because it didn't. What's it? The stupid analogy or stupid thing of like, I can blindfold myself and walk across Old Cheney or Dodge Street in Omaha and not get hit by a car, but that didn't make it. Just because I made it across the street doesn't make the decision a good decision. Like, okay, you not having burning the timeout didn't end up technically like costing you, but that still doesn't mean that it was the right.
I think it cost them at the end of the game when they could have used an extra timeout. Because then they wouldn't have to force it down the field as much, right? Like,
right.
You that extra timeout when you got, like 2 minutes to go, like that matters. It matters a lot.
Yeah.
And your strategy, how you want to attack. I mean, it helps you.
What did you think at the end of the first half? The end of the first half was bizarre. So end of the first half, USC gets the ball with 1:35 left at the 31-yard line. They run a swing pass to Woody Marks for about 4 yards. USC gets the unsportsmanlike conduct late hit penalty for 15 yards. Nebraska had a choice to either call timeout, and so you get the 10-second runoff and you call timeout so the clock doesn't run. They choose to not call timeout there, and then USC lets the clock run.
Yeah.
So you end up losing about 30 or 35 seconds of game clock. 2nd and 22, Marks has a big gain for 20 yards, so it's 3rd and 2, and Nebraska then stuffs USC on 3rd and 2 with about 42 seconds left, and then Nebraska calls timeout. Mm-hmm. And then USC punts it and downs it at the 1-inch line. And so now Harburg has to come out to run a quarterback sneak at the end of the first half just to make sure you don't get a safety. So again, it's this caught in between of like,
are you confident or are you not?
Do you want to call a timeout and get the ball back and go for it or not?
I mean, it's when you are like, if you are, name any good team with a killer offense, like they're taking that timeout quick.
Yeah.
Like any chance to get, like, we're sort of in that weird world where we're like, are we confident that we can score, or are we being defensive because we don't want to make a mistake,
Right.
So we're still caught in that mindset where it shows in some of those indecisions to me.
It's just I'm with you on the whole 4th down, wasted a punt thing. And then at the end of the first half, those two things just scream like, well, be confident in what you're being aggressive or you're not.
Yeah.
But like it seemed like you were straddling the fence there.
Well, they were not confident. And I mean, they were not going to be aggressive. And then later, I mean, it's okay to take the timeout later. It's fine, but and then catch the punt.
Yeah. Don't let it roll to the 1-inch line.
Caught one inside the 5, and then he lets that one roll.
See, Raiden started returning punts.
Well, he should be after that. I mean, our boy Isaiah, the Dockers were too tight. I don't know what
happened. Dockers. Isaiah, your Dockers so damn tight.
Coach, they're riding up, Coach.
Oh, man.
Sorry, coach, I'm having trouble thinking.
I got a
Dockers,
wedgie, coach.
Coach, these Dockers
These
are right
Dockers
up.
are so tight.
I got the NIL deal, and God, I wear them everywhere.
Man,
they are so tight.
I'll just catch it and go relax with these Dockers here. But yeah, you catch out, you caught a punt at the 4, and then you let a punt roll to the 1.
Yeah.
In 1 inch, not the 1 yard line, the 1 inch line. Okay. Anything else with the offense before we go to the defense?
To be continued.
Frustrating.
Look on the bright side, Nick.
Yeah, okay.
We got Wisconsin this week.
By the way, they looked gave Oregon all they could handle in that one.
I'm glad they played a tough game. They played their hearts out, right?
It did look like they had that look, and we've seen that from Brett, where like they gave it all in that game.
That's what you want.
Felt like they were just like, this is it. We are selling out to winning this game, and it didn't happen.
Actually, it's sort of a great setup for us, because that is the letdown comes after that sort of like when you sell it, you give everything you got. It's hard to do that 2 weeks, because usually you prepare better when
right.
You see the way that some of these guys prepared. I guarantee it won't be the same for us.
So let's take a break, and then I got some reads here, and then we're going to talk about the defense. Got to tell you about Peerless Energy Systems. They're the sole air authorized distributor for Nebraska and Iowa. And here's the thing. If you have any air compressor needs, you got to think about Peerless Energy Systems. So if you're in manufacturing, utilities, transportation, food processing, refineries, like body shop, car dealership, automotive, countertop maker, whatever, I can go on and on, but you get the point. For any and all air compressor needs, Peerless Energy Systems has you covered. Go to peerlessenergy.com. That's peerlessenergy.com. And we're brought to you by the Brickway Cut Spike Lucky Bucket family. When Nebraska is losing 4 games in a row, let's just say the bourbon goes down nice. The beer goes down nice when you're struggling with trying to cope with what is going on with Nebraska football. I love the Brickway Pilsners. Told you the Oktoberfest are fantastic. Make sure you check them out in Omaha. They're in the Omaha-La Vista area, 4 blocks south, 120th and Giles. Shouts out to the Brickway Cut Spike Lucky Bucket family. And we're brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. I got the crew coming to my house. They're going to work on a bay window. I'm super excited. My wife is way excited. The local team at Pella Omaha and Lincoln, they're fantastic. Debbie and Vince and the crew, they're great. The showroom is fantastic. Instead of looking through like a magazine, you could actually like feel the window, feel the door, get a better feel for what you're installing into your home. And man, these installation experts, they are awesome, man. They are professional, they're courteous, and they will leave your home cleaner than they found it. Call the Omaha or Lincoln showroom or go to PellaOmaha.com to find out how you can get $100 and new windows and doors starting at $122 a month. That's PellaOmaha.com. Okay, defense. I feel bad with the defense right now, Bo, in that like there are times I find myself frustrated with the defense, but the reality is they have to be like top 10 defense in the country, perfect for Nebraska to even have a chance in the game. Like they had a pick 6. Mm-hmm. They forced a fumble. Where Maeva was literally, I mean, he was talk about getting loosey-goosey with that thing. I mean,
yeah,
good Lord. That they forced a fumble that set up Nebraska inside the 20. I know it's special teams, but defense, they block a field goal, and you do all those things, and it still doesn't matter. So I just feel bad where there are times I'm like, come on, defense, but they held USC to 28 points, and they got a pick 6, and I don't know.
They were good, but not good enough.
No,
right? So that's probably the way to say it. Like they were good. And USC didn't like run all over them. It felt like matched. Lincoln Riley called a nice game. I feel like they do a lot of that. Not necessarily all misdirection, but it's like they do like false keys kind of where like a guy will come across and not block you and keep running. You kind of are in that no man's land. They do a lot of that kind of stuff where, they actually pulled their guards kind of guard and tackle kind of funky.
Right.
So it's a little bit different looks than I've typically seen people use for how they block things. But it kind of throws your reads and your keys off. But I thought they did a good job just calling plays. But in the end, we were too leaky in the run in the run game. And then in the like our DBs in the secondary. Like
Well,
somebody's got to make a play.
That's the couple of things here. Clearly, I think it's clear that in the offensive meetings, game planning for this game, they wrote number 7 on the board, circled it, and said, we're picking on that guy. They went at Hartzog a lot.
Yeah.
And Hartzog broke up a few early, but then late, some big third downs. He just looks small.
Well, do you see how big that number
dude is?
Was it number 3 or what was the dude's name? No, he's number 2. It was the big
Deuce
boy.
Robinson.
Deuce is a big human being though. Deuce was big and he made Hartzog look like he was coming out of like Leon's.
Deuce Robinson 6'6", 220.
He's a big boy. Like,
and it just
it
would get
match.
ISO'd on. Yeah. And so, but again,
let me tell you, that's a tough match. But I mean, Hartzog, dude, he was in position almost and is this much, right? It wasn't like it was that. The difference is not if Hartzog was 6'3", it's like if Hartzog was 5'10",
right,
he makes that play. So he was just
the one in the end zone.
The one in the end zone.
Because it goes through his hands.
It was just a little. I mean, if he's an inch or two taller and an inch or two longer, he probably makes the pick.
It goes through his hands, bounces off of USC's face mask, and then he's able to catch it.
Yeah.
But so whether it was that play, couple of big third downs, they were hunting him.
If I were them, I would have thrown at Tommy every time he was in the game.
Well, Tommy Hill,
he doesn't look
so in one of the biggest plays of the game, because again, we tend to do this thing. USC is having a rough season.
Yeah.
They had won 4 games. They had just changed their quarterback. They're going through it too.
Their psyches were a little new quarterback.
He didn't look great early.
No.
Sierra Wright pick 6 him.
Yeah.
And then on their first drive that resulted in a touchdown, Maeva gets to the sideline and throws a 500 ball.
Yeah.
And Tommy Hill somehow not only doesn't intercept it, he doesn't even get a hand on it.
He looked like he was backpedaling, trying to jump, like completely injured. Like if you put out an injured guy in the field and said, try to jump up and catch a ball. Like that's
a good way to put it. Because he
didn't look right.
He couldn't backpedal and then jump.
And so that guy basically almost threw 2 picks on that drive,
right?
Which would have been for him probably devastating. You throw pick 6 and another pick,
yes,
to start your day out.
At that point, they probably go Miller Moss, get back in there. You know,
then it's a different day.
And so, but then to compound things, Tommy Hill might have had the softest tackle attempt of the season.
He shouldn't be out there because he's hurt. Like he doesn't look. I'll give him the credit enough that like he didn't look like that when he was healthy. But if that's how he looks, he shouldn't.
He can't be out there.
He can't be out there.
Yeah, there's a difference between like we admire your willingness to grit it out and get out there, but if you can't, if like that's what it looks like, you can't be out there.
No, somebody else will at least come hit.
I mean, because he came on their first touchdown where they swung it out to the wide receiver and he comes down the side. I mean, that looked like what is it called? Tagging off in practice. Yeah. He literally tagged off.
Yeah, that was bad.
That was really bad. And that's a big, because they had just thrown a pick 6. You could have had another interception, and then they score, and now Maeva's able to settle down, USC's able to settle in, and it kind of felt like, okay, game on from that point.
It felt like whatever momentum that we clearly had,
yes,
flipped immediately. It was a quick flip. So we had a chance with those missed interceptions, and even holding them to less than a touchdown, right? Like to maintain momentum and change the game early, which that's what we kind of always have to do. We're not about come from behind team, like a chance to build and get a real lead.
Right.
That's what we needed to do. And we just weren't capable of making the plays when we needed to.
Do got to give a shout out to Sierra Wright. I mean,
Sierra Wright, method actor.
And the Oscar for best interception in a first down goes to Sierra Wright, Nebraska. This is Sierra Wright's first Oscar. And best special teams play made in a critical moment by a defender on the edge goes to Sierra Wright.
He's running the table.
He's running away with it, but he played great. Wanted to make sure we get that in there.
And they didn't even try to throw at him. They were going to anybody other.
Yes. Pass rush wasn't great again. Only one sack. Didn't feel like they couldn't quite get to him.
And those were the difference on those third down plays, that we were in position. We couldn't just make the sack, and they were completing those, like they were just throwing it kind of down and up to those big receivers that were going up and making plays. I thought like that was my two takeaways from defense was like, God, you just gotta finish those pass rushes, and then our DBs like, man, you gotta win more than half of those balls.
So we had the Tommy Hill 500 ball where he doesn't get it. The Hartzog threw his fingertips in the end zone. That's two times. And then the most frustrating part of the game was the big fourth quarter drive from USC. 13 plays, 84 yards, a drive that they held the ball for 7 minutes and 39 seconds, and it ends in a touchdown.
And that was the play also with Javin Wright, I think.
That's it. Yeah. So that's into the other kind of like just those crazy bounce of the ball where Maeva gets hit as he throws.
Was that a fumble?
Well, no.
I mean, it looked like Dr. James.
Was it James? Did Dr. James come in and
spank that baby real quick? Yeah, and
get that baby to cry real quick.
But it looked like the ball came. It was like hit as he threw. It was just a fumble.
And then it looked like Javin Wright kind of touched it. Then it hit the USC wide receiver. Then it maybe hit Javin Wright again, and then he catches it.
Like hand. The guy did a good job of tipping it away from Javin, so it was going to Javin Wright's hands and belly, and he tipped it up. Then it ricochets off him back to him. I mean, it was
just a wild, crazy sequence there where, again, it feels like over the course of a decade, all of those bounces of the football always go the other way, go towards the opponent. And then came the big 4th and 1 call on the short side of the field speed option where, I mean, all Husker fans were just like, oh, that one hurts.
Short side option. How many times have we seen that in the last 40 years? A lot. We've seen it a lot.
Somewhere, I mean, Turner Gill to who was it? Jeff Smith in the 83. I mean, just that thing was gorgeous. It was short side. Maeva pitches it. Woody Marks gets up the field for like a 30 or 40 yard run. And then they're able to, and then Maeva's, the cut for the touchdown was nice. But that's where, again, I get frustrated with the defense. I go, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but then it's just like, we talk about the clutch, zero confidence in the offense to be able to drive down. I also feel like there have been numerous times over the course of the last 5-6 years where the defense just really struggles to, in that spot, to come up big with a big stop. And so that was frustrating too. I don't, Woody Mark. I mean, the one thing I will say is that they ended up rushing better. I mean, Woody Marks, 19 carries, 146 yards, 7.7 yards per carry. USC in total ended up having 185 yards rushing. So they ran the ball better than almost any team had run the ball on. They
didn't really throw it on us very well. Like all their throws were they were tough. They're all pretty tough, except for the one touchdown that was wide open.
Yeah, that dude was wide open.
Everything else was it was tough, and man, we had chances at those balls. So I didn't think that their quarterback looked great actually. And they weren't as impressive as I thought they looked when I saw them at the start of the year. And so to me, this is an opportunity game that we weren't ready to take it.
Full disclosure, I've not been immersed in watching every play of USC football outside of that LSU game. But the idea that Jaden Maeva is a better option than Miller Moss seems crazy to me. That guy, there was a version of that game where Nebraska picks him off 3 or 4 times. He has the one fumble.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't think he was that good.
No.
At all. But Nebraska just couldn't make him pay for some of those things. But anything else with the defense before we kind of wrap this thing up? I mean, I don't. It's just.
They have to be better than 28 points.
They have to get. They got to be a little bit better. They got to make one more play.
They got to be between that 14 and 21 is the max they can even dream of, because it's not like, we're averaging 17 points a game or something. But really, it's like once you go over 14, it gets real hard for us. So like, if you go over 20, if you let over 21 as a black shirt right now, that's getting beat to me.
Yeah.
So you got to keep it 21 and under, no matter who you're playing. If you're playing Ohio State, you got to keep
That's
it
the truth,
21.
though. Yes. Like these last 2 games, if you give up over 21 points, it's over.
And that's hard. That's a tough precedent to set, but that's where we're at. So like, we want to win. Like, that's how good they got to be right
now. Okay. 2 thoughts to kind of wrap this thing up. It is, I hate to sound hyperbolic, but it does feel like Nebraska football is in one of the most dangerous places it's been in a.
Did you read Mitch Sherman's article? I was surprised how that Mitch went that.
So I'll read Mitch Sherman Athletic. Make sure you get a subscription. There's really good. I mean, this is his final couple paragraphs here, because I thought it was a really interesting column. He goes, there's no 5-star quarterback prospect on the way to win an offseason hype contest. No coaching change to explore. Rule is still owed $62 million on his contract after this year, so don't even think about that. The progress evident no greater in this moment than at the darkest times of the past decade. So what's left to do other than accept your fate as a Nebraska fan? Acceptance is the final stage of grief. Beyond it, on this path comes an action that's difficult to consider for even most of the blank staring players and fans who streamed out of the Coliseum on Saturday: to move on from Nebraska football. Whoa. But now, I feel like your inclination is to be like, oh, that's over the top.
Yes, I would. To me, that's way over the top. I know, like, there's a lot of people frustrated. I just think, the alternative is to move, like, to what? Move on to what? Being like an Oregon fan? Like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, Nick, I might be such a homer. I don't know what that means. Like, to move on to me says, like, to move on to what? To nothing?
I think
because it's nothing. It's either you stick with what you got and you believe irrationally, or you move on to nothing.
I don't think it's quite as black and white as moving on, but I think it is a emotional detachment to where you're still halfway watching the games, but you're not invested in it the way you had and have been. Now, I know that's kind of a word salad there, but I think that's kind of how I don't think it's necessarily like these people, Bill from Beatrice and Charlie from Kearney. Like, it's not like they're just like, I am done. I'm never watching Nebraska football again. It's like cold turkey. It's done. But I think there's just, if you slowly pull back.
Okay. I'm just trying to picture, like, but how does that work? Does that just mean I watch the games, but I quote, don't care? I just mean, if you're watching the games, don't you care? I mean, to me, I don't know how you can grow up a Nebraska fan.
Well, I think
eliminate that, the caring from your life for Nebraska football. I don't know that it's as much a choice.
I don't think, but I think,
you know what I mean?
I think all these things
or do you not care?
I think all these things are just a slow erosion. Like, I don't care as much as I did 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And by care, I mean, I don't get as upset I don't, like, I'll watch and I'm invested, but if things don't go well, you kind of just, how many times can you watch this and watch them lose before, like, it's almost at the point, like, you really are that upset still because you like,
okay. So you can be less upset and you can get numb to the losses. I don't think that means you don't care. And I don't think that means you move on. Like, to move on, that's why when I read it, it's a big statement. Maybe Mitch didn't mean it at all like that. I think it's just,
no, I just think I'm trying to interpret.
On is saying, like, this isn't for me anymore. That's how I take it. Like, I'm going to not watch or barely watch.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know if there'll ever be a full,
not follow it, but maybe I'll watch a game here or there. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I used to go to games and tailgate, no more. Like, to move on, I don't know what moving on means.
Well,
if you're a Nebraska football
maybe
fan.
it means our buddy Chris Lyon. Now, he had some friends that he was going to visit in LA, but he was going to go the second this game came on the schedule. He was making sure he was going to go to the USC. Like, maybe it's the 20,000 people that made the trip to USC to go watch the Huskers. Like, that number gets cut in half and then cut in half from that. And then all of a sudden in 5-6 years, what used to be a sea of red flooding the Coliseum of 20 to 25,000 people becomes 5,000 people and then 2,000 people. Maybe it's that kind of stuff. Like, is it, I wish I could describe it in a way of like,
but the way you would describe it is not you stop watching.
I don't think anybody's talking about in all reality. Let's be honest, not to rip it, because I love Nebraska. I've lived here my whole life and I love it here. But I don't. What are you realistically going to do with yourself?
I mean, it's like,
what are you going to go? Like,
no other, like you're going to have to pick another team.
You're going to so you're going to stop watching football.
That's what I don't. That's what I don't get.
I think it's. But could it be a get ready for another word salad? Could it be a thing like you love Nebraska football, but you're not in love with it? Does that make sense? Like where you care about something, but you don't actively like, of course you'll always have like a special place for it in your heart, but you're not like, you're not living and dying by it every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's some, I mean, I think there's degrees, right? There's just degrees. So maybe it's just people scale back the intensity, but like I took move on a little bit, maybe too literally.
Yeah.
Right. So I just,
but it does feel like, okay,
I don't know.
whether we want to take the Mitch Sherman move on part of it and extrapolate that into what we're talking about, I just think Nebraska football is in a very dangerous place right now.
Yeah. We've kind of been there we've been there for a long time. So I think we've been there for at least 3 or 4 years. Like,
but at some point, I mean, it's just that I know we keep saying this, like at some point,
I think we have more runway than it's a ridiculous runway. Almost it's insane the runway we have,
right,
to even still be here. Like the runway we've had is crazy. There were still here, Nick. It shows you how, I think there's even more. Like I think people will be willing to endure more. Now they won't endure forever. You're probably right, but I don't know, man. I just think that I still think that there's the alternative for this unique situation, for this state where we got one thing, Nebraska football. That's our one.
Yeah.
It's our one team. It's our one football team, and people love football here. And we had so much success. Like I just don't know that the alternative, which seems to be nothing or choose any other team, that alternative I don't see happening.
Yeah.
Now scaling back, care a little less than I did, but still care some. That's okay. That's normal. That's what happens to people.
And I think that's already kind of happening.
Sure, that's happened for a lot of people.
Because everybody probably has anecdotal evidence of that, of their friend group, their family, all that stuff. That
how much you tailgate,
how much do you watch, how many, like all those kinds of things.
See, that's real. But to move on, is a big statement.
Yes, and so I think there are degrees of moving on.
There you go.
And I think any moving on, whatever level that is a scary.
It's bad.
It's bad.
That's bad.
And
you don't want it.
You'd imagine that that's where it's at. One final thought before we get out of here. It's weird in that Rules talked about, hey, we're a developmental program where this is going to be, I'm doing this I'm building it for lasting, for staying power, all those kinds of things. It's not like it's a bunch of young players on the field. I caught myself yesterday watching, as the final play happens, which, by the way, he did get, Banks got held. There should have been pass interference, but I don't know. At this point, I it's hard for me to conjure up a bunch of anger because it's like, would have Nebraska then the ball's at the 2. Does Nebraska score? Everybody, are you confident? Is Nebraska scoring? And then guess what? They had to go for 2. They would have to have scored again. Come on, they ain't doing that. They were going to win the game.
We weren't good enough that was the only thing that mattered.
Yeah,
that's the point. Like that, I'm more frustrated. Like we play a perfect game, and then they hold us on the last play.
Right.
And we don't.
They weren't good enough to win, and they didn't make enough plays to win. But back to my point of as I watched that play, and everybody's walking off the field. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking what you wish you could say is like, just wait till this group's wait till this young core. Wait till this group's a bunch of juniors and wait till their senior year. Because remember, that's what Rule talked about at Baylor. Like he went to because he had no choice because of the gutted roster that they had to play a whole bunch of young guys, and they took lumps with young guys. And then by the time year 2 and year 3 hit, they had like grown and were ready to go. Like the defense is all old guys. Yeah. They're all old. The offense, a lot of them, sans Dylan Raiola, Barney, and that's Lloyd, I guess, is a sophomore. I mean, it's a lot of old. Banks and they are going. Borkacher's a senior. Ben Scott, Bryce Benhart, those guys are all senior. Like, so I guess what I'm saying, like, is this weird thing of like, we thumb our nose at like, well, okay, Kirk Cignetti, doesn't have staying power. It's like, well, okay, they went with some of these older guys and it still isn't working.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a scary thought in that regard too, where I'm like, I don't even like next year, the defense is going to be like brand new in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so it's still a lot of Frost. Like if you look at who's on the field, it's a lot of Frost guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they should have went young and that like, I mean, you don't want to take Ty and Polar Bear and Gifford and Bullock and those guys. You don't want to take them off the field, but at the same time, it's just kind of like this weird, I guess the development's happening in practice and all those kinds of things. But
yeah. And they still got to keep recruiting. They got to bring in talent that we don't have right now. Like, like at some point we still have to upgrade to erase any doubt in these games that we can win. We just need to have some guys that are just going to erase the whatever thing that we have that we can't get. Like we need some guys.
I know. And I don't,
that's the easiest solution.
Thing we've been saying for years.
The easiest solution is just guys that are a little bit better will win us more games.
But what's crazy is that has been on repeat for 5-6 straight years.
Yep.
And doesn't mean it's not true, but it's just that been saying that over and over and over. And I don't know if like for whatever reason, the losing is getting like the winning DNA and winning culture gets passed on. Like I get worried that it's like the losing gets passed on.
Because I almost said, well, some of these guys, maybe it's good to get them, but I go, well, it's like, I don't know. Like there's still like, how much is that carries over, right?
I don't know. But I guess I'm just saying you look out there and it's not like it's a super young team where you go, oh man, they're taking their lumps now, but just wait. No, they're old and they're taking their lumps. They've been taking their lumps for years and they're going to have a brand new team next year. Maybe that's what they needed. Maybe what they need is like a brand new team.
Well, and you need a core of like, I always call it like just those winner guys, whatever sort of infect the whole team with a certain attitude. They don't always have to be the most talented, but you sort of have to have a core on every really good team of just guys that like are absolutely dedicated to winning and they have a winning mind. Like, and they just, you almost can't be on their team
and lose
and be losers.
Yes.
Right. And so that's hard to find those guys, but you just got to, I think it's too hard when you try to only create those guys. I think you have to get some of those guys.
Yeah.
And then you can develop others. I think you can raise others, but you got to have a certain core of just like the winning mindsets that are just come out of certain guys.
Man. So you're not ready to move on.
Nick, I'm going to be in this thing for the long haul.
I love how you have, even amongst our friends, whenever that sort of topic comes up, you are like, I love how
I look at people and think
you are not just in disagreement, you're in violent disagreement with that sentiment.
I am. I just believe in extreme loyalty. Like you'll never have an issue with me being your friend for the rest of your life. I'm in, Nick. I'm in.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Who I am.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can we move on from this podcast until the next podcast? Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's move on.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.